September 17th to Saturday, September 23rd. Okay, so let's review last week. Many of us very, very heavy, very weighted, very exhausted, very negative in our mind space. And a lot of that is because we've been sitting in a void since the full moon in Pisces that, of course, initiated this beautiful kite formation taking place in the cosmos that essentially is helping us to choose our fate, to choose our karma, to choose our path, our contracts for this next chapter that we will be moving into. Of course, the heaviness, the weight, the irritability, the frustration, 100% needed in order for us to feel like our back is against a wall, like we're drawing a line in the sand, like we're identifying what has to end, what we no longer want to pursue, what we don't want to tolerate, what we don't want to experience. We need that kind of weight. We need that kind of frustration. We honestly need that kind of negativity in our life in order for us to figure out that a major change is needed. And of course, that major change has been something that many of us have been awaiting for a very long time. But of course, with all of these retrograde planets, we are not in a forward movement type of building energy. We are in a take a good look at how it is that we've gotten here, what it is that we want to keep around, what it is that is no longer serving us, what it is that we've outgrown, what it is that we no longer want to give time, energy, and attention to. And a lot of that feeds into Venus, who of course had her rebirth August 13th. She's still in her post-retrograde shadow period until October 8th, which is why we haven't taken action on some of the changes that have been illuminated to us in our heart space. We had a major pivot point around that particular point in time. Throughout her retrograde, we've realized who and what needs to stay and needs to go. We have the opportunity with Jupiter, who, yes, is currently retrograde in Taurus energy, but being in Taurus energy alone gives us the opportunity to build, to recreate, to redesign, to rearrange, to restructure our physical realms in accordance to what makes us happy, what brings us the most joy, what brings us the most safety, security, and stability. And for many of us, this is going to feel like a very long, drawn out process, being able to actually put hands on in our physical realms to kind of rearrange and restructure what our realms need to look like and who is going to be a part of it moving forward. We also have to consider the fact that this past week really brought up a lot of emotions that we're currently not even able to process and articulate within ourselves. There's this want, this need, this desire, this urgency to make a change, to speak on some of the things that we've been holding within ourselves, to really get out of our physical body some of the anger, some of the frustration, some of the rage. Now, at the same time, a lot of that is because we were building to the new moon in Virgo that, of course, we're still sitting in. If you're joining me here Friday evening, we just had the new moon in Virgo, literally like last night. And I guess depending on where it is that you're at in the world, maybe it's happening for you in the wee hours of this morning. But regardless, that new moon in Virgo definitely gave us a reality check. It made us heavy, it made us weighted, it made us irritable. It made us really focus on what it is that we have to change as far as our day-to-day lives go, as far as our mental plane goes, the narrative, the dialogue in which we're speaking to ourselves, the focus that we're currently having, especially on the smaller details of our lives. Because again, what you pour into, what you share your time, your energy, your attention with on a daily basis is either what is going to make or break your long-term goals, your long-term dream, vision, manifestation style, and of course, success. So we're really having to get down to the nitty-gritty, if you will, under this new moon in Virgo. And of course, here today on the 15th, we have Mercury, who rules over Virgo season, who was in his rulership over this new moon in Virgo, finally going direct. Now, this is a beautiful thing because the new moon in Virgo completed that kite that we began to see the configuration in the cosmos really come to life back on the full moon in Pisces. And again, the full moon in Pisces, new moon in Virgo, they are the healing axis. The full moon in Pisces a couple weeks ago unleashed and unlocked a lot of complex emotions that were very connected to the shadow realm part of our experience, our unconscious self, especially where pain and trauma and soul contracts, big karmic life lessons were concerned. We kind of got that rattled up within us. We got illuminated to where it is that we've been holding on to dead weight. We've understood over the course of this last couple of weeks where it is that our heart space is not as safe and secure and stable as we want it to be. And therefore, we have a major change, not only of head space, but of heart space to really kind of sit and process through before we move ahead and engage the physical body to start actually putting hands on some of the aspects, some of the elements in our physical realm to rearrange and restructure what our current realms and realities look like. So Mercury going direct, that's a great thing. However, a lot of pressure in the headspace, a lot of focus on the inner narrative. Granted, we're going to kind of see Mercury sit in his post-retrograde shadow period until October. So for those of you thinking that this new moon in Virgo and Mercury going direct suddenly, fingers are going to snap, everything's going to make sense. We're going to have the information, the details that we've been lacking, the clarity that we've been lacking. In order to make a plan and strategy, it's not going to happen overnight. We are going to receive a little tiny bit of clarity over the next couple of weeks, but mostly what we're doing here is we're shifting, we're orienting, we are understanding what we have to focus on bringing an ending to, a closure to, a completion to, as we move into this week's energy, which I'm going to talk about right now. So this week, we are about to experience a time warp. A lot of this is because we're in the very last days of Virgo season, which means that we are entering into the equinox energy that gets ushered in with Libra season. Now, we've been talking about this. We've been talking about how the last days of Virgo season are going to get a little bit crazy, how they're going to feel a little bit, I'm going to say, accelerated, pressurized, intensified, more so than some of the energies in which we've been sitting in. And a lot of that is because the equinox energy is a karmic reset. The equinox energy, which I will rant about here in a second, it is a portal, a doorway, a gateway through time, if you will, through vibration, through consciousness, through frequency, where we are going to close the door on this past karmic chapter that we've been sitting in. That's why things have been heavy. That's why things have been weighted. That's why we feel like our back is against a wall, like we can't take anymore, like the struggle is very real, like we're just done with this place. This always happens when we are closing out a karmic chapter, a karmic cycle. We will be entering into a new one, but this particular week is going to test us in all of the ways to see whether or not we really have what it takes in order to be bold and brave and courageous enough to follow through with taking action, making moves in order to really kind of anchor in, I would say, the new want, need, and desire to break away from what it is that we've already created, what it is that we've been drowning under in order to start fresh. Now, many of us are going to fail, and let me just tell you that it is not a quote-unquote fail. I just use that word so that you can understand the contrast. What we're kind of experiencing is a timeline jump, another one. Now, if you find yourself on the precipice of knowing that there is going to be a great change, however, there are some situations that come at you this week that bring out the old version of self, that bring out that egoic conditioning, that egoic programming that has you sitting in fear and doubt and insecurity and has you aligning with the old version of self. Then I hate to break it to you, but you're not jumping timelines. You're not moving into a new karmic chapter. You're choosing to stay in the old one, which is going to be a struggle. You are not going to roll with it. You are going to be dragged through it until, of course, you are gifted with another opportunity. I'm going to talk about that here in a second because it's not very long that we have to wait to get sorted out because of eclipse season. Okay, so there's going to be a large group of people that are going to fall victim to the state of paralysis that the ego self, the shadow self, always kind of kicks into high gear the minute that we are evolving, the minute that we are choosing to do better, the minute that we are basically aligning with a new level of enlightenment, a new level of awareness. There are going to be people that do make the jump, that do really kind of see where it is that they have been tested in many ways and will continue to be tested throughout the course of this week to see whether or not they are going to kind of step away from the reactory behavior of the egoic programming being triggered, being activated, and kind of, just attacking the world around us in that particular moment, or whether or not we're going to rise above that, really align with the higher self, recognize that we need to be in the state of the observer in order to see where it is that we're being triggered and activated in order to fail this particular timeline jump and mission. And of course, revert back to egoic programming. There are going to be a group of us that are going to make the shift, are going to make the jump. Now, in, let's call it light worker terms, it doesn't mean that you are any less of a light worker if you do not jump this timeline. What it means for you is that you haven't absorbed the lessons of this past karmic chapter to the degree in which you need to integrate them as far as your wisdom, your knowledge goes, as far as the practice of taking what it is that you've learned and integrating it into your soul self. Now, if you find yourself with the back against the wall with a major choice point and you choose not to take it, then just understand that you have not learned the karmic lessons that you needed to learn in order to progress. For those of us that will be jumping timelines through this equinox energy, it means that yes, we've learned the lessons. Yes, that we've done the work. Yes, that we're doing our best to kind of integrate the wisdom and the knowledge that we've accumulated from the tough love life lessons that we see very clearly. A line drawn in the sand of the old version of self, of the old reality, the old choices, decisions, constructs that the old version of self has made. And we're trying super freaking hard not to go back to that. Now, it's hard because the new version of self hasn't been anchored in yet. And that new version of self got triggered and activated back when Venus and the Sun had their conjunction, and Venus basically got brought back to life. Now, we just had Mercury do the exact same thing with the Sun, which is a refresher, a rebirth, a resurrection of our mental plane, of our focus, if you will. And that took place on September 6th. So here we have the heart space and the head space still both in the confusion, both in the fog of their post-retrograde shadow periods. Again, Mercury will be in that post-retrograde shadow period until pretty much October-ish. And then Venus, she got 1 week into October before she clears hers. So there is a little bit of an indicator there where we're not going to be as actively engaged in our physical realm with our, physical meat suit and our egoic avatar, and really kind of rising to the challenge of making the change that our heart and our head are requiring us to pursue. And for those of us that are bold and brave and courageous enough and have learned the karmic lessons of this last chapter and continuously pass the test with flying colors to not revert back to the old self and to do the hard thing, which is the right thing, to rearrange and reconstruct our physical realms in accordance to what it is that our heart and head is asking us to pursue, we will be moving into a new karmic chapter. Now, the light worker issue, those of us that will be jumping timelines, we, typically speaking, are the alchemists, are the grid keepers of the energetic matrix in which we're trying to hold down on this new earth, which means that those light workers that are not choosing to jump right now, y'all are still going to have to do the work by processing the shadow part of the collective and alchemizing it through this next chapter. So if you're wondering, okay, well, when's the next opportunity for a timeline jump? Let me just say to you that it's not really a timeline jump as much as it is the universe stepping in and sorting us out and putting us on the path that we failed to put ourselves. But that comes with the eclipse season that we're moving into here very, very soon. We do have the full moon in Aries taking place at the end of September, and then when we move into October, we will be having the new moon solar eclipse in Libran energy. And again, this is a very beginning stages of the karmic cycle that the North Node and the South Node, being in this Aries and Libran axis, is teaching us. So it's going to come with a little bit of a harsh reality check, because those of us that have failed to do what we need to do in order to get in alignment with our soul's potential, our soul's mission, our soul's purpose, we will be sorted out in a very tough love kind of way under the eclipse energy. But the next kind of quote unquote timeline jump, I would say, comes with the winter solstice. We always need to look at the spring equinox, that is kind of the rebirth. Then the summer solstice, which is a gateway to higher realms of intelligence, higher vibrations, higher frequencies. Then this is the fall equinox that we are kind of pushing through, and then the winter solstice in December. So those are the major points, the major fixated points, I would say, that we have to kind of realize where there's going to be a major change. And a lot of that is just because the karmic playing field that we are currently fighting on, it gets reset. It gets kind of locked in, if you will. Wherever the collective consciousness, vibration, and frequency is at, that's what we lock in. And this is the point in time where whatever it is that we've been working on kind of deconstructing and collapsing will collapse for good. We're moving away from that. That's what this whole, identifying the old version of self and the choices and the decisions and the realm and the reality in which the old self is created. That's what we're talking about here. That old version of self, that vibration, that frequency dies when we collapse the vibration and frequency within the collective. And so what we're kind of experiencing now over this next week is choice points. So many people will say, well, how do we choose? Like, I want to jump timelines. How do we choose? First of all, it's kind of a double-edged sword because it's really not a conscious timeline jump. Not many of them are. This is all higher self. You have to understand that the astral version of yourself is existing in other dimensions, and it is those dimensions that dictate what's going to happen here. So as above, so below. When our higher self, when our higher consciousness and other dimensions and other realms decide, because they have a bigger, broader perspective of the overview of the path in which we're traveling and the direction in which we're going, when the higher version of self decides that it's time for a major kind of clap back in our physical realm, that is how the timeline shift is accumulated. I'm going to give you another analogy here. You often hear me use video games as these analogies. Seems to work very well, so let's dive into it. Let's say that you've been moving through this level of this video game and the whole goal is to get that life meter up to 100%, meaning that that life meter has gone through the challenges and obstacles and tough love life lessons and has been accumulating enlightenment, awareness, and wisdom. We need that life meter, if you will, to get to 100% before we kind of like bulk out and we get that very, very short window of time where we're like, the music goes fast and we have the ability to collect more coins and to, really boost ourselves up, video games on steroids type of thing. Well, many of us are in this next week trying to get that life meter to 100%. Once we reach that 100%, we get to move up another level. If we don't get to 100%, guess what? We're doing this level over again. Now, granted, we're at the tip of, let's say that your life meter's at 90% and not 100 as we move through this equinox energy. Well, there is a high probability that you're going to have to repeat certain life lessons, that you're going to have to re-examine where it is that you failed to launch, so to speak. But you're starting to level over at 90%, which means that it's not going to take you very long moving through this next level to actually reach that 100% where the life meter bumps you into the next version of self and therefore the next soul contracts, the next timelines, the next, going to say karmic chapters that we're moving into. So this is what I mean. Many of us are going to meet the quote unquote boss at the end of the video game here this week. And many of us are going to be low on life force energy because I don't know if you've noticed, but it's just effing exhausting to be alive here on this earthly planet. As of late, many of us don't even have the energy to fight. We don't even care at this point. We're just, sometimes you get to the video game level and you're like, you know what? I'm probably not going to beat the boss in this particular level anyway, so I'm just going to jump down the tunnel and reset myself. That's where some of us, our higher selves, are at. And so this is why I say to you, it's not necessarily a failure on your part, consciously or unconsciously, whether or not you elevate to the next level of the karmic chapters, the soul contracts that we'll be moving into through the equinox energy, as much as it is just not being well established, stabilized in the particular vibration and frequency that you need to be in order to actually get into the next level. So I don't know if that's helpful or just confuses you more, but that's kind of the way that I look at it. So if you're, maybe, here's for instance, many of us right now have already reached that 100%, life force energy, life level where we know we're moving on to the next karmic chapter, which means that this next week we're going to be buzzing out. We're in that, where the music is fast and there's more opportunities to collect coins and we get the double whammy, and any, energy, life force energy that we extend to try and beat the boss is double whammy because we're already at that 100%. So there is a group of us that, quote unquote, are moving on to the next vibration and frequency in order to act as the grid keepers. So every single time we collapse a lower timeline or we collapse a lower vibration or a lower frequency in the shadow realm of the unconscious collective, right, which is, what we've been doing here through the Great Awakening, every time we collapse that, we need a certain group of people to go on to the next level, to usher in the energies, to transmute those energies, to anchor them in to this earthly realm, so that the group that maybe didn't get to go through the next timeline jump, they're going to stay where it is that we've all been at, transmuting those energies, doing the work, stabilizing within their own self. And those that are moving on to the next vibration and frequency are going to act as the filters, if you will, to take on the higher vibrations and frequencies, to dip the toe, if you will, in the pool of the next karmic chapters that the collective is going to go in, so that we can go through the ascension symptoms, we can go through the wisdom, we can go through the challenges and obstacles in order to gain that wisdom, so that we can lead the next group that is fighting the boss right now, trying to get that 100% meter up to where it needs to be to jump into the new timeline once we're given an opportunity to kind of advance in that way as well. So there's always a mixing and matching of the energies, vibrations, and frequencies. We all have a different job to do here on this earth plane, and many of us are going to be moving into foreign territory here by the end of next week, when we are 100% in that equinox energy, and of course shifting into Libra season. Let's talk about Libra season for just 1 second. Libra season is an air season, which means that there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of thinking. There's a lot of renegotiating and compromising, especially when it comes to relationship dynamics. In case you haven't noticed, relationship dynamics are ever changing. Many people falling apart, many people, well, essentially falling together. This is a very interesting time for relationship dynamics because many of us have been pouring a lot more into other people than we've been pouring into ourselves. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're suddenly no longer coupled, good indicator, it's time to do you, boo. You got to pour into you before you can pour into anybody else. We're in a year of 7. It is absolutely essential that we build upon the relationship within ourselves, because we're going into a very challenging level of the video game here in 2024, people. It's going to be the year of 8. 8 is Scorpio energy. It's death. It's destruction. It's rebirth, resurrection. It's where true transformation takes place. And we need to feel as strong and stable and grounded within ourselves before we get into that particular chapter of karma. So it's very important that we're working on the relationship dynamics. And again, if you've been in a relationship, you find yourself no longer in a relationship, give thanks to the universe for setting yourself free. This is a time for you. This is a time to get to know you on a different level. For those of us that have been single, finding, people kind of in our radar where we're wanting connection, where we're wanting a relationship, be very cautiously aware. We're in a retrograde. We're not necessarily in a very positive situation right now to form any kind of new connections, let alone relationship dynamics, because the name of the game here is for us to return to our individual selves. Why is that, you may ask? Well, because many of us don't know who it is that we are without the people that we are intertwined and connected with. And so the strongest vibration that you can kind of align with and exude within yourself here is, many people would say that it's love. It's not. It's authenticity. And when you are real and raw and authentic within yourself, and you love yourself at 100%, then that is the strongest vibration that you can stand in. It's the strongest vibration that you can even align with here on this earth plane, is being 100% real, raw, and authentic. That means that quote unquote God or universe or cosmos, whichever label you feel comfortable with, has individualized itself into your soul self, and you was given this body in order for you to truly express this particular version of quote unquote God, cosmos, universe, soul source, whatever you want to call it. So for those of us that haven't been aligned with our real, raw, authentic self, well, that is a great kind of insult and disservice to the greater, grander creator that asked us to come here to truly be ourselves. So this is a time where relationship dynamics are going to change. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean that everybody is breaking up, but you will notice that if you continue to stay in relationship dynamics, that the energy has shifted. I want to also be clear that when we talk about relationships, this doesn't necessarily just encompass romantic relationships. You have a relationship with everything and everyone and every aspect that you give time and energy and attention to. So we're talking about the relationship of you in the relationship with the world around you and the people in it. Every single person that you interact with is a relationship dynamic. And therefore, because we're going through this, alteration of the energy dynamics, you are going to see the energy in every single one of your interactions change in order to kind of force you, if you will, to do the work within yourself instead of being distracted and constantly pouring into and worried about other people. This is the whole Aries and Libra node karma that we're in. And I don't know how many times I have to repeat myself, but when I say to you that the North Node in Aries is here to make us independent, to push us into knowing ourselves, to push us into our selfish era, it does not mean being rude, being selfish, putting yourself first and not having consideration or empathy for other people. What it means is that we have to be independent. We have to be our individual selves. We have to get to know ourselves on the strongest level possible. We have to be centered in ourselves, because that is where the real, raw, authentic version of ourselves is alive and well. So this is about letting go of people, the opinions, the thoughts, the influence of people, in order for you to do the work within yourself. And we're all going to learn some very tough love life lessons over the next 18 months where these particular life lessons are concerned because of the Aries and Libran energy. Okay, so that was quite an intro to the energy of the week. Let's talk about a couple of things before I jump into the Ascension symptoms. First of all, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for being in the chat. I want to thank you for dropping emojis in the comments below. I want to thank you for the likes, for the shares, for the comments, for the love that you give my way. I want to thank you also for the love that you gave my dogs over this past week. I want to thank you for the patience, for the understanding of last week's very short Ascension forecast. But my little man, he is recovering well, which means that Mama is in a better mind state. And I want to just thank each and every single one of you for your patience, for your understanding, for your love, for your support. I also just want to remind you, I had a couple of people reach out and say, like, how come you don't post about, everybody, especially in the spiritual community, every astro event, it's like, oh, where's the new moon Virgo going to take place in your chart? And how is the new moon Virgo going to, affect your life? And you get all these kind of content creators constantly just putting out little random blurbs of info about the events in which we're going to. I'm sorry, and I don't mean to sound rude, but I don't have time for that. I really don't. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy to sit around and create clickbait, because that is all that is. And most of those little posts are so inaccurate. Like I see it on my own, social media. Sometimes I read posts from other quote unquote astrologers or spiritualists or whatever about the astro events that, affecting all of us. And I have no clue what they're talking about. And then I'm like, damn, am I so, uneducated in my own industry that I don't know what they're talking about? Like, what is this? And let me just tell you, it's all clickbait. Okay. The reason why I don't do that is because I spend a huge chunk of time at the end of every month prepping and preparing every single person all the zodiacs, all my individual VIPs, and I put out all the videos as those astro events kind of take place to prepare the collective. If you want to know where this is going, this new moon, let's say, okay, we're sitting in it, new moon in Virgo and Mercury going direct. If you want to know where this is taking place in your life and the impact that these events are going to have on you, download the forecast. I have the zodiac forecast there for this specific reason. I put out astro forecasts for every event that gives you an overview on what it is that you can expect. How many of you downloaded your moon guide? We're still in the new moon arena, if you will. Those moon guides are constructed in order to help you, in order to do a deep dive into your life, where these events are taking place, how they're going to impact you, what it is that you can do to get in alignment with these energies. And it all requires shadow work. This is doing a deep dive in our unconscious realm in order to bring forth the elements that have been playing, looping in our programming, in our conditioning, into our awareness. The minute that you are aware of something is the minute that you can change it. But you can't change anything if you don't know what's going on below the surface. And this is why I make the moon guides. So I had a couple of people, kind of say, well, where's this new moon going to take place for me in my life? And I say, well, do you have your chart? No. Okay. Have you checked your chart? No. Have you listened to your zodiac forecast? No. Have you listened to the astro forecast? No. Have you listened or have you downloaded your moon guide? No. Have you downloaded the Virgo e-season e-guide? No. Okay. Well, I'm not going to have a conversation if you haven't taken the time to absorb all of the information and content and wisdom and knowledge that I've already put out there. And I don't really feel like my time is well spent sitting down, creating little tiny memes or little tiny blurbs of infographics that essentially are just clickbait. If you want a play-by-play of what it is that we're going through to keep you like 100% on track, join my Patreon. We do the play-by-play each and every single day over there. We're talking about every change, whether it's with the moon's attitude or the different aspects taking place. There's astro forecasts, there's rants about it. You get all of the astro forecasts way earlier than I publish them on YouTube. Like, there is a benefit to jumping over to Patreon if you want that kind of step-by-step play-by-play on the energies in which we're in. So I thank you to those of you that do the work, that, listen to the forecast, that have all the guides, that do all the work. I thank you so much for doing that. And for those of you that are, just kind of wanting to stay in the shallow realm of your healing journey by reading the nonsense posts of the spiritual community, then I really invite you to kind of take the next step into your healing journey, dive into the deep end, if you will. And, we are in a very important time as we move towards this equinox energy. Times are changing and we are here for it. So let's do the work. Let's be all on the same page and let's jump this timeline together. Okay, couple things that I just want to talk about as far as the Ascension symptoms go. A little bit of a rant. Okay, so we're going into a week that is going to feel very wonky as far as time is concerned. So let's consider the fact that we're in Virgo season. It's an earth sign. We're in the new moon in Virgo. That's an earth sign. We have a lot of earth placements. You can figure that out by watching the daily energy forecast videos that I put out on YouTube. There's a little box of the elemental energy. It will tell you straight up every single day what dominant energy we're currently working with. If you download the moon guides, you would know where the elemental energy is kind of giving us an opportunity to work with that particular energy under the moon event. So let's talk about it. Right now, we're sitting in a grand earth trine. What does that mean? Well, a trine is when particular planets are a certain degree away from one another or certain signs away from one another, all in the same element. So we have a lot going on. We have a lot of earth energies. Pluto is retrograde in Capricorn energy. Uranus is retrograde in Taurus energy. Jupiter retrograde in Taurus energy. The moon being in Virgo energy. The sun being in Virgo energy. Mercury being in Virgo energy. There's a lot of earth energy. What is earth energy, you may ask? Well, it's our physical realm. It's our physical realm. It's our physical bodies. It's our tasks, our chores, our roles, our responsibilities, the structures, the foundations of our physical realm. We have been in Earth dominant events, especially where the moons are concerned, pretty much all freaking year. And that's because we're having to go through this major shift, this major change in our physical realms. We are deconstructing and collapsing the old world. We are trying to build a new one. In order to build something new, you have to clean the slate of the old debris. That's what we're doing right now. With all of these retrograde planets, especially the ones in Earth energy, that is what we're doing right now. We are cleaning out the physical realm, the physical reality in which our old selves have created. So we have a grand Earth trine. That's a beautiful thing. It means it's a gentle harmonization, a gentle nudge in the right direction. And again, if you're over on my Patreon and you tuned in to last week's astro class about the kite formation that has been coming together since the full moon in Pisces, you would know that that grand Earth trine is part of this kite. And of course, Neptune being retrograde in the Pisces energy is the point of the kite, which means that there's a lot of healing, there's a lot of dreaming, there's a lot of shadow work, there's a lot of endings and closures, there's a lot of shifting of beliefs, there's a lot of illumination on our spirituality, on unpacking the pain, the trauma, the emotional baggage in which each and every single incarnation has left a mark on our DNA. That's where we're at. So the time work comes in because, first of all, there's a lot of Earth energy, which tends to give us the quote unquote illusion, if you will, that time is very slow. Time is at a standstill. When realistically speaking, there's a lot going on in other realms that just haven't manifested here in this realm yet. And again, as above, so below. So what our higher selves are doing in other realms and other dimensions hasn't trickled down to this particular Earth realm yet. It's coming. We have to be patient. But moving into this week, because of the equinox energy, I'm going to give you another little analogy here. We talked about this before, so I feel like I'm a little bit old school with just repeating myself, but at the same time, I think it's helpful, so forgive me. You know how when you're watching movies or what have you, and people are on an airplane, and then somebody goes and they open the door to the airplane, how it starts sucking everything out? Okay, well, the equinox energy that we're very, very much moving into, that is slowly opening the door to the plane where everything is going to now be gravitationally sucked towards that particular door, portal, gateway. So what we're going to find is that, first of all, the new moon in Virgo and Mercury going direct as we speak, that's going to give us a different perspective, but it's going to be a very low and slow start. We are going to start feeling a little bit more crazy, a little bit more chaotic, a little bit more intense where impulse is concerned. Like there's this urgency, like, oh my God, I got to fix everything now. Oh my goodness, I have to recreate everything now. Does anybody else like just lie awake in the middle of the night, just contemplating life and suddenly have the urge just, totally just revamp and renovate their life at like 2 a.m.? That kind of urgency, okay? And just side note, the reason why a lot of people have that sensation around that time is because our physical senses are are lowered enough to actually be in an altered state of consciousness, and we're actually more in alignment with our higher self, with our soul self around those particular hours of the day. And there is more clarity, more urgency that we're not living the life that our higher self wants us to be living at those particular times of the night. And so suddenly we get this urgency, like, oh my God, I got to get my shit together. I got to get, my life together. I got to make this change. I got to rearrange everything. I got to, get on the to-do list. I got to make some calls. I got to find, the answers. Well, that energy is what we're going to be moving into as the door of the plane gets cracked wide open and we get sucked towards this portal as we move closer to the equinox energy. Let me also just say that the Libra season in its entirety, and again, scales, Libra energy is represented by the scales. Fun fact, it's the only zodiac sign that is represented by an inanimate object, if you will. And there's a reason for that, because Libra season is the doorway, the gateway from the physical realm to the spiritual realm. It is 1 foot in the spiritual realm, 1 foot in the ego realm, 1 foot in the physical self, 1 foot in the higher self. And major change and transformation always gets kind of triggered, activated, and pressurized before we move into Libra season, because Libra season provides us the opportunity to regain the balance, to reset the scales. Now, Libra season, although the goal of Libra season is balance and peace and harmony and la 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 la, we tend to experience extremes before we ever find that balance point. And not that I want to get too ahead of myself here, but Scorpio season is where the true transformation takes place, mind, body, and soul. This right now, we're in Virgo season. We're very connected, the physical body to the physical realm. Moving into Libra season, we move up into the head space. We try to get the heart and head in alignment. We try to talk things out. We try to negotiate. We try to compromise. We try to plan. We try to strategize. Scorpio season is where emotionally, soulfully speaking, mentally speaking, physically speaking, the major change and transformation happens because we merge all parts of self back into a state of wholeness. And we really kind of get the party started and launch ourselves in a new path, a new direction, a new adventure in Sagittarius season. And then Capricorn season, of course, that ushers in the winter solstice, is another karmic reset. So we kind of set off into the adventure of the horizon of the unknown with Sagittarius season, and then we lock in that karmic chapter with the winter solstice, and then the entirety of Capricorn season is about coming back down to earth and being logical and practical and sorting out our long-term goals and taking control of what we have control over and rearranging our physical realms in accordance to the new path, the new direction, the new version of self. So it's a whole thing. I'm not going to continue on the zodiac wheel because I could be here forever, but what I'm trying to get at here is that this week is going to be a time warp, and it's going to be pressurized, and it's going to come with a sense of urgency. And again, we're all kind of fighting, the big boss at the end of the video game in order to see whether or not we can be successful in actually moving to the next realm, to the next level, to the next karmic chapter. So with this time speed up, let's say, this time warp, of course, there's going to be glitches in the matrix. You may find that you lose items and then 3 days later, suddenly they're in the exact place in which you looked 50 million times, and you're going to say to yourself, there's no way that it was there the whole time. There's no way. I flipped this house over. I look for it everywhere. There's no way that it was right there the whole time. That is a glitch in the matrix. You are also going to be experiencing a little bit of a wonkiness with the gravitational force. So what do I mean by that? Well, you ever have days where you go reach for a glass on the top of the shelf and suddenly you realize you're like 6 inches too short to reach that glass that you've been able to reach every freaking day of your life? So you're having a short day, or vice versa. Maybe you're having a tall day. Maybe you're having a big bobblehead type of day. Either way, time, space, gravity, not the same. You'll be bumping into things that you never bumped into before. You'd swear to God that you have, let's say 2 extra feet in your kitchen than you had, or maybe 2 feet less. So you feel like you're cramped. You feel like there's a condensing of your environment. Whichever way it manifests for you, just know that the matrix, okay, so consider the matrix, the prison matrix that we're in, the false matrix that we're in. Consider the fact that we're glitching out the lowest form of some of those grids, while we, as the light workers of New Earth, are trying to override the prison matrix with a freer New Earth vibration frequency matrix that we're trying to anchor in. So every single time we manipulate the matrix or the grid, we're going to have these particular, let's say, symptoms or repercussions or validations that we are altering time and space, which is, I think, a great thing. But I want you to pay attention to where this is happening in your physical realm, how it manifests. Like, are you having a short day? Are you having a tall day? Do you have more space? Do you have less space? Are you bumping into things? Are you losing things? Like, pay attention to that. That's a good indicator of your personal shift, your personal experience, as we kind of collapse the lower vibrational grid frequencies of the matrix and we anchor in the New Earth higher frequencies. Pay attention to that. But also pay attention to your dream state, because that's your astral version of self. And because the astral version of self has some major challenges, some major changes, some major transformations taking place this week, There's going to be an impact on our dream state. Maybe you even see this in your meditative state. Maybe your intuition is coming online in a different way. Maybe you're tapping into, clairaudience, or maybe your smell is getting stronger, or maybe your sight is expanding to a bigger, broader light spectrum. Whatever the case may be, there is a major change, a major shift, a major transformation taking place to our energetic bodies, which of course has a major impact on the physical form. So you could be losing time. You could be all messed up with space. The dreamscape definitely going to show those particular changes, if you will. But I want to talk about the physical body. So yes, there's still a level of exhaustion. There's still a level of frustration and irritation throughout this week because, again, we're looking to beat the boss of this level. We're looking to wanting to go to the next level. You know what I mean? Like the princess is in the next level screaming at us to come save her. We need to beat this boss. We need to go save her. So there is this urgency. There's this irritability, this frustration. It feels like our back is against a wall. It feels like we're being forced to change. And, spoiler alert, you're human. If you chose to change, you would never change. It's only in a state of uncomfortability and discord that we ever change because we're humans. We want to learn the hard way. But there's going to be this pressurized, me against the world type of feeling here. You're going to feel beat down. You're going to feel isolated. You're going to feel alone. You're going to feel like you can't get ahead. You're going to feel like you are essentially the only person here fighting these wars. And as we are all in our own individual video games fighting our own individual bosses, that collectively is going to help us. Like if we were all online, I'm not a gamer, so forgive me, but you know how some of those games you can like play with other people across the world. So let's just say that we're all in the same level. We're all fighting the same boss. And for those of us that actually beat that boss and move on to the next level, that's a collective achievement for these gamers, right? And so what I will say is that there's a lot of pressure on the physical body. We're in Virgo season. We still have a lot of Virgo placements. Mercury is direct in Virgo, which is its place of power. So there's a lot of digestive issues, a lot of nausea, a lot of upset stomach because there's a lot of worry. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of concern. There's a lot of restlessness. There's a lot of impulse. There's a lot of urgency. And yeah, we're going to feel that in the head space. So you might have a migraine, you might have head pressure, you might have a moving headache, a headache worm, as I like to call it. You might have a head cold. You might realize that allergies or sneezing or just trying to get rid of the congestion in your head is at an all-time high. We have a lot going on that has been very stuffy, very rigid, like we're holding on to dear life. So you have to consider the fact that when we go through a major change, major transformation, a major precipice of change, there is the desire by the egoic self to hold on to what it is that we've already built and created, even though that we know we've outgrown it and that it's no longer serving us. There is this want, need, and desire for survival to hold on to what it is that we already have because we're not confident enough to let go of it, to create a space of nothingness to see if the universe is going to deliver something better. And again, you often hear me talk about this. This is not the way that manifestation works. You have to give that trust, that signal, that sign, that validation to the universe that, yes, I am willing to clear out all of this crud, to empty out my closets, to downgrade in my life, and to cut out all the things that are no longer in alignment and serving me, because I know that the universe is going to deliver something better in the space of the things in which we are getting rid of. That is how it works, but many of us are holding on to the old, waiting for something new to show up so that we feel confident enough to let go of the old to grab onto the new. That's not how it works, but many of us are going to fall victim to that pattern, to that behavior. When you hold on to things, there's an energetic cord that connects you to those things. Here, and I'll give you another relationship tidbit. So for those people that are currently breaking up, there is an energetic cord that ties you to that individual that if you're not doing the proper spiritual cord cutting with these individuals, you will continue to long for someone that you have no business desiring. If somebody is on your mind, if you were obsessed with somebody, if you were constantly thinking of the highs, the lows, the pros, the cons, even though you know that it needed to come to an end, but you have this wanting, this desiring, this yearning for this person who maybe screwed you over, maybe did it respectfully. Who really cares? That chapter's over, but you can't seem to let go. It's because you haven't cut the cords. Similarly, we have to cut the cords with the old version of self. We have to cut the cords with the old aspects in which the old self created, in which now we have outgrown. There is a whole ritualistic type of synergy that comes down to us in our conscious realm, sitting in a meditative state and really doing the actions needed in order to sever the connection, the cord with these particular either individuals or aspects of realm of reality. So we're going through this disconnect, if you will, and this adds to the loneliness. It adds to the whole like me against the world type of vibe, but it's not me against the world. It is us as the world, right? We are creating the world. And for those of you out there saying, oh no, this world is horrible, I didn't create this world. Yes, you did. Your shadow realm element of humanity did. And that's why we're here to alchemize the energy to make it lighter and brighter so that we can collapse the old timelines, the old storylines, the old vibrations and frequencies that created that shadow realm element of humanity. And we can enlighten the world to a new vibration and frequency. We are the world. We are connected in ways that you don't even understand, that our human brains cannot even begin to process on a level in which we need, on a quantum level, to understand the intricacies of all dimensions operating at the same time, of all versions of self operating at the same time, in order to accelerate the awareness, the enlightenment of humanity. The other, we'll call them star races out there that we are all made of, that we all have certain DNA of, depend on us to evolve humanity so that our origin families can evolve on their own territories as well. This is not just a human thing. Okay, this is not just an earth plane thing. We are being cheered on, essentially. This is like the World Cup, if you will, of the galactic skies. And right now, humans are on the field. Humans are on the spiritual war path, if you will. It is up to us, because we are the lowest vibration and density still existing in the cosmos. It is up to us to break out of the slowest density form and enlighten ourselves to a new vibration and frequency that allows us to go on to play in different tournaments, if you will. Right now, it's just us against us, because we're the lowest and slowest and densest forms that you could possibly even explore here in the galaxy, in the universe, in the multiverse. And we are the only equivalent, I'm going to say, members to play against. It's us against us. And in that, there's different versions of us fighting different versions of us. But what the whole point is to collapse and deconstruct the densest shadow realm aspects of humanity. And that's why the world is so ugly right now, because we're bringing that ugliness to light. So we have to continue to do that job. So it is a lot of pressure. It feels like the weight of the world is on our shoulders, and it is. And you will feel that weight, that kink in your shoulders, in your neck. You're holding that tension in your jaw. You're holding that tension in your body. That's why it's really good. I'll give you a little bit of a practice exercise here to do with me right now. And I want you to do it. And I want you to tell me how it is that you feel as you're doing it. But if you take your body and you take all your extremities and you curl up in the tightest ball and you just like stress yourself out, you're just, holding as much energy as you could possibly hold in your body. And then you stretch it all the way out like starfish style. Do you feel the energy coursing through your body? So again, bring in all the extremities, wrap yourself up in a ball, like a rigid little ball of fire anger, and then let it out like a starfish. And you're going to feel the energy pulse through your body. That is what we need to do to release the rigidity in our physical form. But we're going to have a lot of back cracking, neck cracking, just extremity cracking, because we're very tense, we're very rigid, we're holding a lot in. And this is going to be the time where we have to become a little bit more fluid, because when that door to the airplane opens and the vortex of energy starts sucking us out of that door, we need to be pretty limber in order to kind of go with the flow and hold on to whatever it is that we have to hold on to without our bodies just absolutely snapping, cracking, and breaking in the process of trying to be fluid. So the element of not being able to breathe, we've talked about this before. It is a lesson in breath work. It is a lesson in realizing that you're not bringing as much chi, prana, energy into your body as you need. But like we have a lot of tightness in our chest. That's again, Venus trying to clear her retrograde shadow period as well. The heart activations, it just makes it a little bit tight on our chest. Like we can't get a full breath. Like it's not satisfactory to breathe in. And there's a little bit of dizziness that happens when we're trying to fill our lungs with air. That is because we're going through this, I'm going to call it portal energy, this gateway, this doorway of energy into the equinox. There's a lot of anticipation. There's a lot of worry. There's a lot of anxiety. And so, breath work is key, but it is going to feel very unfulfilling, if you will, to not be able to bring that satisfactory deep breath in and actually feel good about it. So it is called a practice for a reason. You have to practice at it. What else do I want to talk about? Well, I think it's just important to just kind of say that, the sensory type of symptoms that we get is due to the central nervous system responding to the, let's call it electromagnetic frequency pressure coming in from the cosmos. And I would also want to say that like the rigidity that we're feeling by holding so much in and being on guard and waiting for the ball to drop, that's really not doing us any good to try and get this energy out of our bodies. The sensory experience, so, this is going to come with the time warp thing. Like our eyes are adjusting to different frequencies and we may see, threads in the matrix. We may see orbs. We may see sparkly, shiny, more vibrant colors. Hearing, it doesn't necessarily need to be ringing in the ears, but we're definitely picking up on sounds and little vibrations and frequencies that we can't identify in our environment. And again, I'm going to blame the interdimensional bleed of the time shift of the timeline jump that we're going through. I want you to pay attention to your skin. There's a clamminess, a puffiness that's kind of taking over. So anything that we touch is going to feel a little bit strange as well because our physical touch sensory symptoms are changing as well. We're going through this recalibration. We're going through this upgrade. This is going to be felt in all ways, on all levels, mind, body, and soul. And so, this is just going to be a very interesting week. And I think that it's great that we are gifted the opportunity here this week with not a whole lot going on. We're wrapping up Virgo season. We will have the first quarter moon in Sag, which is going to illuminate a new restoration, a new renewal in spirit, in trust, in hope and faith and wishes. It is going to give us a little bit of a chunk, a little bit of a glimpse, a little bit of a glimmer on the path in which we are going to start pursuing and moving forward. But the clarity just isn't here yet. So we just need to kind of understand that we're going through a very intense, pressurized shift this week that will help us put some things behind us, bring new things into focus, and get us kind of focused on what we have to focus on in order to break away from the old and to basically redesign the new. And we're all up in the Virgo energy doing this, and then we're going to sail into that equinox energy, have a little bit of a whirlwind there, and then we're going to get started on trying to rebalance the scales of our lives here with Libra season. So guys, I think that's all that I have to kind of speak on here for this week. The typical normal Ascension symptoms are always still very possible and plausible to take place. I just try to highlight the newer ones, the unexpected ones, the not so common, not so frequent ones, which I think the biggest thing this week is going to be the time warp, the time and space, the gravity type of situation where it feels like everything is changing, but really nothing is changing. It feels like we're dizzy. It feels like, we're being sucked into this, let's say, open airplane door, this whirlwind, if you will, but we have no clue where it's coming from, what it wants from us, what we should do about it. We just kind of have to go with the flow, hold on for dear life, and see where, we're going to be spit out, basically, on the other side of the equinox energy. So I love you all. I thank you so much for tuning in. I want to continue just to remind you that you're not alone on this wild, wild, crazy roller coaster ride. At any time that you're feeling alone or you need a little bit of a pep talk, a little bit of a boost, just drop it in the comments below. Like, there are some beautiful souls here in this community that are just ready to remind you that you are not alone on this journey, and that will reassure for you that you're not cray cray. And I just want to thank each and every single one of you for being here and for being a part of it. And hopefully we'll see you all on the other side of the equinox energy. I'm sending you nothing but love. We'll talk to you soon.